Hey y'all, Andrew Bateman here, on the bayou right now, and I get tons and tons of comments and questions on alligators because I'm around them a lot. I post a lot of pictures. I'm by no means a formal expert, educated in their ways. I just have my experience of about 15 years of paddling around them. And there's something that happened recently that I want to share just because it's made its round on a couple of forums and I've seen a couple of people asking questions, so I just wanted to address it. Primarily also because I just had a little bit of a similar experience. The first one was definitely a little more disturbing, if that's the right word. I don't want to over dramatize anything because plenty of people do that about alligators. I will say what I've always said. 99.9% of the time, if you find yourself in peril with an alligator, it's because you put yourself there. I know there's nuances to that, and I don't mean to discount anyone else's experiences, and the handful of tragedies, though they be extremely small in frequency, they are nonetheless tragedies, so I acknowledge that. That said, you got people that are often trying to sensationalize alligator attacks, especially if you look at YouTube and social media, and they'll have something like an alligator jumping in the water in front of a kayaker, and then the screen goes black and the ominous music plays, but guess what? You never see what happens after, because pretty much every time it would be very boring because nothing would happen. Alligators go to water, it's what they do. When you're not used to it, it's scary. When you're used to it, you understand it. That said, here's what happened a couple of weeks ago. I have a new data point. Now, my experience has, up until this point, been that alligators pretty much always get out of your way one way or another. Yes, they'll go to water, but they're not coming after you. They're trying to get away from you. So one thing, we have probably record level low water right now. In a lot of places on the bayou, it's no more than 1.5 to 2 feet deep. I'm pulling up mud on my oars quite a bit. This is, I believe, to blame for what happened a couple of weeks ago, and something I want to make you all aware of just to be careful about. Again, I've had questions about this too. So I was out right where the bayou meets a lake, so somewhere you'd think it would be a little deeper than other places, and so we've all probably been caught up on branches or root systems or something like that, and that's what I thought I was caught up on. So I start kind of trying to push off and lean and shake and all that kind of stuff. It turns out it wasn't a tree or a root system, it was an alligator, and I'm 90% sure that I know which one it was because it was a pretty dominant male that I've seen out there a couple of times, I believe. So all that, what happened, I don't want to over dramatize it, but a lot of water just came out. I mean, you get that with gar sometimes, even when they'll pop, but this was a lot more. The boat almost pitched me out to the right. Thankfully it didn't. It could have been a lot worse. Then I don't know what would have happened, but it could have been bad. But also then I saw the tail come out on the left side of the boat. Never saw the head, thankfully, but underneath the boat there were 3 very, very strong pounds, which I imagine had to be the head. And I'm a 330-pound man in a double hull, 14-foot kayak. So that's a lot of weight. That's a lot of power to be doing that. So again, I can't fault the alligator because I think what was happening is he was probably nestled down in the mud, and some of y'all may know better than me. And again, maybe, and I had underestimated how shallow it was. Normally I would have thought he would have moved, but again, he may have been kind of cozy down there and not wanted to. And then I got stuck on top of him, and I was probably jabbing him with my oar and shaking around on top of him, and I doubt that was super comfortable. So I think his response was actually pretty appropriate. And again, I don't know what would have happened had I been pitched out. Thankfully, I didn't have to find out. So that was that. Again, I paddled away, said a couple of words I shouldn't have, and then things were back to normal. The reason I decided to make this video today on top of that is I'm out again, and the water level is even lower. I mean, we're down about 3.5 feet. It's pretty bad. It's like a whole nother world out here. Kind of, it doesn't feel like the same waters that I paddle all the time. But I got back in a little alcove back there, and again, I'm monitoring the water level. In most places, I'm saying it's 3 to 4 feet, but again, it gets worse in some other spots. And I went over the top of one that it bounced me a few times. Again, after it was nothing compared to that first encounter, but certainly enough to get your attention. Also, I know that's where the dominant one in that area hangs out. So all of that's a very long way just to say, be diligent when the water is shallow, especially when the temperatures are lower like this. And there have been a couple of alligators out sunning themselves today, just partially, none of them out completely on the bank. The rest of them you're not seeing, which means they're in the water, and because the water level it's more shallow, now they are, they're all staying under the water, and they have less space to get out of your way, essentially. And so you are more apt to possibly have an encounter. So that was a long way to just say, just be diligent about that out there. This is now the second time in a very short period that I've come in closer proximity than I wanted to. Again, like I said, they're not attacking. If that one that I'd inadvertently been harassing out there on the water. If he'd wanted to come after me or do any more damage, he certainly could have. I would have been at his mercy. That said, the other question I get again, yes, people ask you, do you carry protection? Yes, I do. But if I'm honest, it wasn't even on my mind when that happened. It was just not panic, but I was focused on the encounter rather than responding to the encounter with any kind of violence of action, if you will. So yeah, but I think if we encounter something like that, it's good to have. I'll always advise that we have it, but it is no substitute for diligence, if you will. We don't need to be afraid of these awesome creatures. We just need to be very mindful of them, very respectful of them. And I found when we do that, they generally return the favor. So there is that. I'm sorry that was kind of long-winded, but I appreciate y'all. Safe paddles. God bless.